Assalamu alaikum. I hope so you're doing fine. I'm Dr. Muhammad Ali Rabbani, and now we are moving on to our next lecture, that is the comparison between spermatogenesis and oogenesis. For those of you who are joining us now, this is the lecture in a series of lecture on the general embryology. Up till now, we have covered primordial germ cell, cell cycle, mitosis, meiosis, spermatogenesis, oogenesis in detail, and there are other topics sprinkled between them too, like chromosomal abnormalities and others. So now, after discussing in detail the spermatogenesis and oogenesis, we are going to discuss the comparison between the two. So that is our objective, to compare and contrast oogenesis and spermatogenesis. So there is a lot of similarities between them. Both of these processes, the event starts or even originate from the primordium germ cells. The primordium germ cells in both of the cases is of same origin, from epiblast in week 2, yolk sac, then mesentery, then fifth week genital ridges. Basically, it is coming from yolk sac wall, endoderm, and that was coming from the epiblast cell. Both occur in the respective gonads in case of males, and testes in case of females, and ovaries. All the divisions from primordium germ cells till primary gametocyte, primary spermatocyte, and primary oocyte are mitosis, and primary gametocyte itself divides by meiosis. You get meiosis 1 generates prime secondary gametocyte, and then you will get a definitive gamete after second meiotic division. Both produce ultimately haploid number, and both produces genetic variation by same mechanism. In prophase there was crossing over, and then during anaphase of meiosis 1 and meiosis 2 there was random assortment. Both participate in fertilization to restore diploid number. Genetic material carries equal weightage from both sides, and both are processes are regulated by follicle stimulated hormone and luteinizing hormone. So these are the similarities between them. You may come up with more too. Please, if you come to, do mention in the comments so that we can all benefit from that. Differences. This is like a rubber band. You can stretch it however you want, and you can condense them. I'll be talking about the difference in location, the timing, the cycle regularity, the production rate, meiosis differences, X chromosomes, cytokinesis, gamete characteristics, age differences, structural changes, viability, and motility. So these are the changes that I will try to go through. So these are the pictures from KLM's developed in humans, Keith Elmore's book. So spermatogenesis occurs in testes, and they produce spermatogonium, and here the follicle is formed, near counterpart overlapping structure is formed here. Primary oocyte, primary spermatocyte is formed. Primary spermatocyte is formed after puberty, it is formed before, and then there is meiotic divisions occurs continuously after puberty, and it occurs once in a cycle. And you have follicle that grows into different steps. You have equal division to four gametes per primary spermatocyte. You get one mature oocyte per primary oocyte, and there are other two or three oval bodies. And then there is a whole lot of changes occurring post meiosis towards sperms, but not so many changes in ovum as such. So let us dive a little deeper. Location of gametogenesis, it's simple. The oocyte occurs in ovary, that occurs in testes. In the ovaries, that occurs mostly meiosis 1 and all the way till meiosis 1, that occurs in the ovary. Here till prophase 1 and getting stuck into till metaphase 2. Metaphase 2, it all of it occurs in ovary, then it ovulates, and in the uterine tube after fertilization, if that occurs, meiosis 2 is completed, that is beyond meiosis 2. It whole and whole occurs in testes inside the seminiferous tubules, and the mature sperm is exited. Next is timing of gamete formation. In oocyte, it begins early. Like in fetal life, you get all the primary spermatocytes, primary oocytes, my apologies. By the seventh month of reproductive life, then no more are created there. Only atresia goes from this point onwards to this point onwards. And then after puberty, the cycle starts again, and the selected few go beyond the primary oocyte to the secondary oocyte, and those who are fertilized go beyond that, and that stops at menopause. In males, thus does not go beyond spermatogonia before puberty. It remains at spermatogonia. At puberty, the cycle starts and it continues throughout the life. If the person is healthy and well, then as long as he's alive and healthy, the sperm production continues. Next is cyclicity. Oocyte development is a cyclic process. There is an oocyte developed once a month and once a menstrual cycle. So in sperm, there is no such case. It is continuously being produced. As it started, it continuously produced daily for hundreds of millions per day, about 3 to 500 million per day that are produced, and millions produced per day. And so it does not have any cyclic or hormonal uh, timeline. Production rate. Ovulation is a highly selective and specific event. So you start with a large number of primordial germ cells, about 7 million in total life. You get to 700,000 at birth. You get to 40,000 at menarche or at the start of menstruation. And each cycle, 20, 30 are picked up, but only one of those is produced. And if you take an average, you can get about 500 maybe, or somewhat more or less ovulation in a lifetime as compared to that. So this is a highly selective one. You started with a very big number and you got to a very small number. So these are the best one that get out once per cycle, as opposed to that millions are produced daily constantly, and per ejaculate you have 2 to 3 million sperms there. Meiosis in oocyte, it begins before birth. It begins in intrauterine life. At the third month to fifth month, it starts, and the it consists of two stops. In intrauterine life, the first stops is encountered for all of the oocytes. All of them enter into meiosis one, and they get attested in diplotin stage of prophase one of meiosis one. So they remain stuck. They resumes in puberty for those particular ones that are engaging in the cycle, and again they are arrested after their ovulation as they proceed beyond meiosis one at the ovulation, and they get stuck at metaphase two, and it remains stuck till the time it is fertilized. So this is oocyte. Spermatocyte does not have such complexities. It does not have any prolonged any arrest phase. It's a continuous process, and both meiotic division they occur in a continuum in the testes. They don't have to go and they don't have to wait for any specific signal for completing their task. Sex chromosome composition is different as the female is XX, so there is only possibility of having all the gametes with X chromosome. So there is always 23 chromosomes with one X chromosome. In males, the genotype is XY, so it is a 50% chance that a sperm will have an X chromosome that is, and a 50% chance for having a Y chromosome, and that is why the male is the one that determines the sex. The sperm is the one that determines the sex. If this one fertilizes, it produces female XX, because here you will get a X chromosome, and if this one fuses, you get an XY male. That breaks the stereotypes, a lot of the stereotypes that we have, at least in our part of the world. Cytokinesis, the breakage of cytoplasm and distribution of material. The oocyte have an unequal division. You get a large amount of cytoplasm in one ovum and a polar body, and the same occurs in the second meiotic division. So you get an ovum with a maximum of 3 polar bodies. Sometimes you get 2 polar bodies because the first polar body, it's not sufficient enough to divide. So you get the first polar body from meiosis 1 and second polar body for meiosis 2. If this does divide, then you have 3 polar bodies. Sperm have equal division. The four are similar to each other with no differences one together, and they have incomplete cytokinesis, where those are joined together with cytoplasmic bridges that are later modified in the process of spermiogenesis. Oocyte, as compared to sperm, is very large, and these are non-motile, and it has a very typical surrounding by zona pellucida, and that is further surrounded by corona radiata. but as compared to the sperm is very small. Its size is as much as that of nucleus, covered by acrosome, and there is neck and tail behind that. So due to the tail, that are highly motile and specialized for fertilization. Cytoocyte is as large as the largest living cell in the body, and the living the cytoplasm. They have a very sparse cytoplasm. The mostly the head contains the nucleus covered with acrosomal cap, and then neck, and beyond that there is a tail with medial principal and end piece with have some mitochondria and the exoneme for beating. Structural changes after the process. After the ovulation, there are minimal structural changes. Large cytoplasm is retained as it was present in the previous steps. So you don't see physical much changes from the primary oocyte all the way till secondary oocyte and ovum. Yes, there are DNA changes is and it becomes haploid, but cytoplasm it does not change its shape drastically as compared to sperms, which undergo major remodeling where cytoplasm is reduced, shed off, nucleus is condensed, acrosomal cap is placed, and tail is formed. So it altogether change shape after the meiosis. So acrosome you can add to. And there is viability. The oocyte, after it is produced in the female reproductive tract, remains viable for about a day. Sperm have more or less similar viability. It remains viable for 1 to 3 days, maybe up to 6 days too. If it is in the female reproductive tract, if it is it's not there, you not in the physical condition outside the body, so it rapidly deteriorates much more rapidly. The oocyte is immotile and it is transported by the functioning of the uterine tube, by the beating of cilia and by the peristaltic action. And sperm itself is motile. It is moved along by passive movements, by peristalsis in vas deferens, by muscular contraction during emission and ejaculation, and by muscular contraction in uterine tube. But it does have flagellum that enables movement, especially through cervix, especially through uterine tube, and near the time of fertilization. So those are the few some of the differences that can be considered. I hope so that made sense. Not discussing them right now, but I'm placing a screenshot of differences between oogenesis and spermatogenesis. This is a picture from Langman's Embryology, South Asian edition, second edition. So do feel free to pause the video, take a screenshot, and go into the depth of those. I think most of the things are one that we discussed before. The close-up versions. So, and these are one of the things that we have discussed in the previous session. So, I hope so this session was useful for you. If you have any questions, suggestion, or feedback, please do mention in the comments below. Do follow us on our social media handles, our website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you can contact us personally. And to explore our other contents, the gross anatomy, histology, and physiology and biochemistry that is present on our page on our edit app. See you till next time.